All right, we are live. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. I see Lori's here, Fulton's here, and Moose Gal Corner's in the house. I see several others that are probably still lurking back there. But if you read the thumbnail tonight, we are going to be talking about bad bourbons, but not all bad. We're going to drink some decent bourbons while we talk about what makes a bad bourbon. So, what to avoid, that type of thing. But so starts right now. Thank you. Okay, we got it. I did announce last week and on my Thursday show that I was going to be moving the Saturday sip along back an hour to 7:15, 6:15. It just runs into too much. It kills the day, you know. And we're still out doing stuff, and it's like 3 o'clock, and I'm like, oh shoot, I got to start thinking about, getting home because I got to set up the studio, got to get everything ready. So I gave myself an extra hour, and I'm very glad I did because the wife and kids are leaving tomorrow morning, and I had to hook the camper trailer up. They're pulling the tug along with them to go to Indiana, and so that is a mess. I had to sweep the slider, slide it in, back the truck up, and then we haven't hooked it up all winter long. And so I was backing the truck up, and we're trying to lower the hitch down. And my wife's like, it won't go on. It won't go on. I forgot to take the leveler blocks off the front of the trailer. So every time I'd try to lower it, it would rest on those leveler blocks and it wouldn't go down anymore. And so finally I was like, damn jacks. So
that was funny how you said that though. It won't go on. It won't go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was a mess. But yeah, you get rusty over the winter, But yeah, you get back into it again. It's not really that bad.
Yeah.
But I worked up a sweat out there. I was in here.
Sure did, man.
Woo, I was fanning. I was like, yeah. Had my hat, and I was just like, whoa, come on. But we made it. We made it. And we had, 15 minutes to spare right before we started. So
nice to relax right before the show.
Right before
That's always a nice thing.
Right. So, but let's get into our conversation for tonight and talk about, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I know I've gone over before that there's a difference between bourbon and straight bourbon. Okay. Bourbon has to follow all the laws, just like straight bourbon, but it's the years in the barrel that makes a straight bourbon versus a just calling it a bourbon. So it has to go into unused charred oak barrels. All right. So, but technically bourbon can go into a barrel for a few seconds and be poured right back out. Now it's not going to get any flavor or any color off that few seconds. But what people do is they beat the law and they pour the white dog in the barrel and then pour it right back out into a pressure pot. And they throw a bunch of charred chips over in there, and then they pressure cook that white dog, and it draws all the stuff out of the wood. Now there's three major processes that goes into the science behind why aging, what it does for bourbons. And one of them is esters. You're not going to cause a chemical reaction that needs to occur and bring out esters in a bourbon by pressure cooking it or trying to be. That just happens over time. Now, there's a lot of companies out there like some people swear by Jefferson's Ocean. They put it on a boat, it rocks around, and the theory behind that has nothing to do with the salt water, by the way. Those barrels are sealed. And people have told me, I get a salty note out of there. Well, if you do, then it would have leaked out everywhere, And but now the whole thing with the boat is two things. Is it's supposed to they float it up and down across the equator, so they're going temperature change, so you get this big climate pressure change and all that stuff, right? And the boat's rocking around, and so the bourbon is sloshing around in the barrel, and there's more surface contact. It's what they're claiming.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's not worth the cost. Yeah, it is. RB Jefferson's Ocean to me is all hype. It's really all hype. And I joked about getting me a barrel, like buying a barrel and finding some old rusty pickup truck and call it, redneck bourbon, and just drive back roads of Southern America while my barrel sloshes around in the back of my old pickup truck. And I wonder how much I could get for a bottle of that,
Hey,
But-
you got a plan.
But what if you were going to do it on a large production scale? It would end up being semis just driving around with your barrels in them, because
Right.
either that or you have to hire like 1,000 guys with 1,000 rusty pickup trucks, to drive back and forth across, the southern United States, or even up and down, even go up north where we go through cooler weather and then back down into the warmer weather and then back up into cooler weather, back and forth. But that'd be with the gas prices the way they are, to have to charge $500 a bottle. But
It'd be some expensive stuff.
But there's the drawing of there's vanillins, which gives the bourbon the vanilla flavor, and that comes from the wood, and that's in the wood sugars, and there's wood tannins, and I know I've talked before about those tannins are coming out now. Some tannins are okay. The tannins from the oak give it a spicy flavor, but it also reduces the sugar count, makes the bourbon drier, not as sweet. And then some people claim that to be, that's really oaky. And the reason they're saying it's really oaky is because it's not as sweet. It's starting to overtake the sugars in it. But you can have an oaky bourbon that is still sweet. You can't. It just depends. And it has a lot to do with humidity in the rick house, with the temperature, the ambient temperature of the room. I've heard of places using, they call it sonic maturation. And all they do is they put subwoofers in the rick house and they play, bass notes. And it's supposed to cause the bourbon to ripple in the barrels. And it's supposed to, what they claim it's supposed to do is make the bourbon fruitier, because they don't understand science. So if you ripple water, you're not making a molecular, on a molecular level, you're not making collisions there. You can shake a bottle and you're not going to break your water apart. It's not going to turn to air, And so, what esters are is when alcohol and acid combine, like a form of acid, and it creates an ester. And people use ester in beer to have fruitier notes come out. And I brought up Duke here because whatever they do with their bourbons, this is a fruit salad fruit bomb. That means a lot of the ester came out in those barrels. Also, what I got here is a very, very young bourbon. This is called Lead Slingers. I mean, love these guys. They're trying to do something here. They're all ex-military, but this is just very weak, young bourbon, and you're going to get some of those off-putting notes out of this because the aging. This is very young, very. I mean, this is very light in color, and it got absolutely all of its color from the bottle or barrel, and it just wasn't in there very long. This one's going to have some notes in it that are going to be that stale, that I call it lint.
Mm-hmm.
That is very, very young bourbon, and it's going to be watery because they do add a lot of water to it. Now, the other thing I did here, though, was I brought up a Knob Creek 9-year and the Knob Creek 12. And we're going to look at the subtle difference between the age for 9 years versus age 12 years. Now, I told Joe before we started the show that I'm not. Oh, let me switch over. How did we get off over here? I thought I was on the chat. Oh, I was seeing it over here. But hey, cheers, Samantha. What what I told you is we're going to use 1 glass apiece, and I'm not going to freak up a whole. I'm still with sinus issues. Already know. I've tasted these. I know what you're going to be getting out of them. I may or may not get the powerful notes and stuff, but we're going to start with Lead Slinger because it is just really weak and really young. And I'm just going to pour a tiny bit because you're not really going to care for this that much.
Okay.
And but I need you to have this in your head when we go to Duke, and then we'll look at where the esters have come out. When people pressure age, or what they do too sometimes is they will just add wood chips, like charred wood chips to the barrel. Like they'll put it in a charred barrel, but they add a whole bunch of wafer chips in there or something. I call them the honeycombs. They have the little discs and they drill holes all in them, and then they char those or toast them in an oven. And then they'll make them small enough where they'll fit through the cork hole on the barrel, and they'll just sit there and fill the barrel up with those things. And that creates a lot more surface area. Those things are in there floating around, in the bourbon. The charcoal does filter out some things, but it takes a long time. When that bourbon is going in and out of the wood, it takes a long time for it to filter out some of these young notes, and you can't speed that up. Just hardly any flavor to it. Now, but if I poured you a little bit, and I'm not going to put you through that. If I poured you a little bit of that White Dog from Buffalo Trace, you would see a similarity between this and White Dog, because those ick notes that are in there, it's hard to put a finger on what it is. It's just there's stuff in there that's just not smooth. It's just not buttery. It's just not, because there's lactates and stuff that come out of that wood too, and that creates a buttery note. And it all depends on the climate and all of that, and the char on the barrel and all that. So now that we have ick factor out the way, I'm going to pour a little of the Duke, because that one has no fruit notes in it whatsoever. That is straight vanilla, barely. And it's really not going to taint this bourbon at all, because there's really not much to it. I mean, what's left in this glass? But right on the nose, I get all those fruits. And I've had sinus issues, and I can still pick them up. But strawberry and
peach.
Yeah, like I said, I call this a fruit salad, and you'll pick up all kind of fruit notes. And there's a lot of fruits that are closely, that, they taste similar to each other, but they're a little bit different. You'll pick up all those subtle notes in it. But those are the esters. And that comes from just letting it age appropriately.
Wow, that's really smooth.
It's smooth and fruity, right? Now, Knob Creek is not going to be fruity.
No burn.
Oh, yeah, there's absolutely no burn. But this is only 88 proof, right? So this was well aged, but it was tamed down a lot, Now, I've got the Duke Grand Cru up there. It has more of the baked fruit notes. Same base bourbon. They just finished it. They aged it longer, didn't water it down, and put it in those French wine barrels.
What's that? 120 proof?
No, I don't remember how much it is. I think it's around 100. But that is a really, really good bourbon right there for a lightweight, bourbon. I mean, there's people out there that like Basil Hayden's, and I call it an ankle biter bourbon. Yeah, it's not a heavy hitter at all. I mean, it's in the 80s on the proof, and they charge a lot for it. Well, now actually, Duke is um, Monument Valley Distillers, but I don't know the parent company. It's Duke Spirits, Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. So I haven't researched Duke enough. I know that Duke changed hands, and I haven't looked into where Duke went. But this used to be the label on Duke with John Wayne on there. And I know I heard rumors about a year or so ago they sold it and they weren't going to make that bottle anymore. They have the new label.
Now it's got Tonto on it?
No, it just has Duke. It has a spur, but they changed it, made it a little more elegant looking. I mean, this literally looks like something John Wayne would have had in his duffel bag.
Definitely.
And the other one looks like something you see in a steakhouse, on the shelf, So, that's kind of what they kind of went for, I think, is more of a refined labeling and all on it. But it's supposed to be the same juice. So I don't know. And it doesn't give a master distiller on here. Oh yeah, it does too. Ethan Wayne, Jason Woodbridge, Chris, somebody, however you pronounce that name, and Richard Howell. So I don't know. Jimmy and Eddie Russell's not on there, so I wouldn't say it was Wild Turkey. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't really researched that one. I have hundreds of bottles back. I can't, know it all. But I do like Duke, and I like this bottle. And supposedly I can't get it anymore, so I kind of nurse it.
Yeah, we haven't had that yet. It's a first for me.
Yeah, I was saving it for me and my dad, but when he was here, we did a bunch of other stuff, and we drank that Grand Cru up there.
It's almost as good as chicken cock.
I think it's better than chicken cock. So now what we'll do is get into once I get this dribble out of here. Now this one doesn't have the 9 on the bottle, but this is Knob Creek 9 year. Is what this is. It's 100 proof. These are both 100 proof. They're the same juice. Okay. This is a 9 year and this is a 12 year. Okay. So I'm going to pour a little of the 9.
Hey, Crazy Ann, welcome. Happy Saturday evening.
Just a little bit. I'm not looking to get Scrooged.
You're not?
No. Well, we'll drink in a little bit. I got to make sure we can get through all these. All right. Just a little bit. Now you may pick up a couple of little hints of that Duke left in there, but now this is an oakier bourbon, Knob Creek, as compared to any of these two we've had.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm picking up there.
Well, I can't hardly help you right now because my sinuses are still not up to 100%.
Huh? I can't tell.
Okay, you're going to get more of a pepper note. It's a drier bourbon. It's a drier bourbon. It's not as sweet, and that comes from more of the tannins coming out in the wood. It dries the bourbon out a little bit, and it creates that. But it's not bitter, right? Now,
yeah, it's good.
That's what I was talking about. Tannins. I said they got too much of the tannins came out. There's a point when you're adding, like say you're cooking soup, right? And if you forget to add salt, your soup's going to taste bland. It's going to smell good. It's going to taste like blandness, right? We buffered for a minute, a second or two.
Sorry.
But, if you forget to add salt, your soup's going to be bland. You can add some salt. Every little bit of salt helps to a point. And then all of a sudden you're going to burn people's tongues off trying to eat it because it's going to be way too salty. The same thing goes with all these little subtle processes. If you're in a hotter climate, you watch your mic there. If you're in a hotter climate and you are really the bourbon's going in and out of that wood, drawing out a bunch of tannins, you've got to mind that because all of a sudden it's going to go from ooh, my soup tastes just right, to, ooh, it's way too salty. Only in the case of tannins, it's going to be, okay, my bourbon dried down to a point where it's the perfect where I want it. It's not too sweet. And then you go just past that and it starts getting bitter, right? So, because dry is the opposite of sweet. That's what they say in alcohol. Really, bitter is the opposite of sweet. And you can keep taking that sweet out until all of a sudden it tips over to bitter. And that's what I don't like about certain bourbons in a certain state I won't name because I don't want to throw anybody under a bus or anything. But they really have to mind their barrels well, because they can get bitter. Now, the oakiness of this, it's the same proof, 100 proof, 100 proof. There's a drier. You can tell it wasn't as sweet as Duke.
Wasn't as good as a Duke.
Well, I think it's all about what you're in the mood for. And this has more of a subtle vanilla flavor. Well, this has more vanilla flavor, but I say subtle because it's starting to, those tannins make it drier. And Duke stays sweet, but the esters in it brought out all the fruit notes. Well, this didn't have a lot of that esterization process going on. With the Knob Creek, you don't get a lot of fruit, but you get a lot of oak. And but there's still some of those young notes in it. Even at 9 years, there's still some of those, a few young notes. You will see when we do over the 12. This is like a lot smoother version of this,
Do they have a 15 or a 20?
I don't have it.
Or 30 or
But this is subtle now. This is subtle. It's not gonna really wow you about, oh yeah, that 12 years made a huge difference. Nah, it's not gonna be like that. I poured some of it on the floor. Alcohol abuse. All right. But it will be tampered down more. Okay. The nose is almost identical.
good legs.
The nose is almost identical.
Oh yeah, it is. I still can't figure out what it is.
Oh,
but now that you mention it, the vanilla comes out strong.
but take a sip. Especially chasing the Knob 9, right after the Knob 9. You see? The vanilla is more pronounced. The oak is more pronounced, but there's no bitter. And excuse me, some of those younger notes from this, the ethanol-y is smoothing out. And you're not, I mean, this is just a pure good flavor of Knob Creek in that.
Yeah, it was pretty smooth, yeah. Little burn.
But that is what a few more years will do for you. And now I wish I had like a Knob Creek 18 or something, because I could pull the Elijah Craig 18 and it's even smoother. Like it continues to get smoother and smoother. But we would have to compare it to Elijah Craig small batch because it's just a different bourbon than Knob Creek. So to put those side by side, you're going to prefer one over the other, and you may even prefer Knob Creek 12 if you don't like your bourbon-esque sweet, or if you do, you're going to like the Elijah Craig, and it doesn't matter what the year is. You're just going to like that, the way they do their mash bill or whatever better. Oh yeah, the other thing about it is people say bourbon gets 75% of its flavor from the wood. Okay, while that's true, there are certain grains that cause different processes to occur in the barrel, right? Malted barley in the White Dog, you're not going to pick up hardly shit. But after it ages in that barrel and you get that process of drawing that stuff out of the wood, it's going to add that nutty flavor to the bourbon. Wheat, it's going to draw out more of the vanillin and sugars from the wood, things like that. Rye is going to bring out more of the spicy tannins and things like that of the wood. So there's different things about it. Yeah, you can say it's getting 75% of its flavor from the barrel, But if all of them are putting it in the same damn barrel, something's happening that's different, and there's just all these processes. But all of this stuff is very subtle, and it all goes together to make this big process that ends up being a product that we've come to know and love. When you try to put wood chips in a pressure cooker and pressurize it and pressure cook the mash, holding all the alcohol in, not letting it steam out, and then letting it cool off, yeah, you're going to get a lot of dark color to it, but you're not going to draw out, one, they're adding a whole bunch of little chips, and those chips are typically toasted all the way around. Think about a barrel is only charred on the inside. There's raw wood. If I take that wood, that stave over there that had been charred, and I cut into it, the char only goes about maybe that deep. And then there's some good wood in there behind it. And that charcoal is filtering as it's going in and pulling that stuff out of those wood sugars, because they're all burned up in the char part, But if you take wood chips, depending on how thick they are or whatever, and you toast them all the way around or put them in an oven and bake them until they get a good char, you may have like a tiny thin strip of just uncharred wood on the inside of that chip. You're not going to have the same effect. So to beat that, a lot of them have taken regular wood staves, and they have a pressure pot big enough, and they just take a whole barrel and it's a charred barrel, and they bust it apart, take the rings off of it, and maybe cut the staves in half or something, and just throw them over in the pressure cooker, and then put the lid on it and then pressure cook it. But, the problem is, in order to be called bourbon, it has to be aged for
2 years.
No, that's straight bourbon.
8 years.
No.
10 years.
No.
2 years. I'm just kidding.
15 seconds. In order to be called bourbon, not straight bourbon, it has to go into an unused charred oak barrel, right? There is no specification for how long it has to be there. So they'll put the white dog in the barrel, pour it from the barrel into the pressure pot, cut the barrel in half, take the rings off of it, throw the staves in, put the lid down, lock her up, and
go eat lunch and then take her out.
Right. And then they have a darker bourbon that tastes bitter like shit, and it didn't draw out the sugars. It didn't, you had no ester process happen, none of that stuff. So that's why it would take, I don't know what it would take. Quit trying to beat nature, and I understand, I understand that a distillery is a huge investment.
Times are hard.
And you have to wait years to get your money, to start making money off this thing. But trying to put out a subpar product and trying to beat and rush the process is just going to give you a bad name that you may never be able to overcome. What's the difference between bourbon and straight bourbon? Okay, so bourbon has to follow, both of them have to follow the law from can't be distilled at higher than 160 proof, can't go into the barrel at higher than 125 proof. It has to be 51% or more corn, and the other grains have to be cereal grains, which is typically going to be wheat, rye, and barley. And it can be even 100% corn, but I don't really care for 100% corn. But it has to be 51% or more, and it has to be aged in unused oak barrels. Now, aged, there is no length of age for bourbon. So you can put bourbon on there if it went into a barrel and came right back out. That's why I say I usually only buy straight bourbons. Straight bourbons have to be aged at least 2 years, but the typical standard is 4. And supposedly used to, before they changed it, they relaxed the law a little bit. They said if it's aged under 4 years, you have to put an age statement on the bottle. Nowadays, they're letting them get away with not putting it on the bottle as long as it's publicly disclosed, because the internet came along, right? We can all go look at their website. And as long as they're honest on their site and they say this is under, and they don't even have to say, they have to say this is aged at least 2 years, right? But typically, if they say that, it's probably right at 2 years, and that's probably where they're pulling it. Because some of them even put like this was aged 3 years, 6 months, or whatever. And they'll put some hype behind it, like, well, we tasted it along the way, and this was the perfect, we're right where we wanted it. Okay, fine. And it may be. It may be. And according to their climate, their altitude above sea level or whatever, that may have been the perfect age for the conditions in their rick house. And good for them. And all I'm looking for then, does it taste good? And does it still taste young? Does it, have a good attenuation? Does it have, and I don't care if a bourbon is fruity or not, or as long as it has other redeeming qualities about it, but I like having a fruity bourbon, and I like having more oaky bourbons, and I like having, y'all can tell I like having a good selection because it depends on what I'm in the mood for that day.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have a very big collection here.
No, not at all. But I do, and I couldn't do a review last week, and I'm probably not going to do one tomorrow, especially after tasting this and seeing. I'm probably at about 75% right now on my comeback for tasting notes and nosing notes, and I'm probably less than 70 on the nose, and I'm probably around 70 on the palate.
You can still smell better than I can.
But I'm going to not do a review tomorrow. But what I'm going to do is take that opportunity to build a nosing kit, because on June 2nd, I'm giving away a nosing kit. And I need to put it together now so I can focus on that documentary that I'm going to be shooting, because the day I come back is the day I'm going live to give it away. And so I'll have driven for 8.5 hours that day, crank up the studio, and do my giveaway show and actually give the prizes away. So that's June 2nd.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell. So, I can tell you that I'm not going to name the bourbons, but I've had some bad bourbons. Bourbons that have all of those, the worst of the white dog mash that didn't tame down at all.
TJ hint.
TJ?
Trader Joe's.
Well, that wasn't even bourbon. But I'm talking about I've had ones that actually say they're bourbons, and they're dark in color, and they're supposed to be what would they call it? Delicately crafted. No, it wasn't. It was bull in a china closet crafted. And so, I've had them, and they're bitter, and like I said, all of the qualities that you expect to age out over time. The more off-putting notes from a really young bourbon are still there, but they just put all of this bitter on top of it, and yeah, they made it dark in the bottle, and if that's what they were going for, that's all they achieved. And it's almost like trying to drink a dark amber white dog mash, and so it's really not that good. Yeah, the pressure cooked stuff, and that's exactly. Once I looked them up, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" And I look it up, and they're like, "We're using this special proprietary aging process." Then I know what they're doing. Yeah, it's not proprietary. It's just you don't want to come out and say you pressure cooked it.
Yeah. Sounds better than that.
It's a super secret. So yeah. The only thing is you're ashamed of it. What's up, Vanessa Kitty? So that's kind of it in a nutshell. But I know I went through all of the steps of bourbon, like every single thing that can affect the flavors of bourbon. But I really wanted to focus tonight on some of the what they're trying to call, quote unquote, scientific ways that they're trying to speed up the process. Now, I'm one to keep an open mind. And if somebody comes up and says, we did it, we have handled the process of creating esters, we have come up with a process of smoothing, these young notes down on this bourbon. We have handled all three of the concepts of a 12-year aged bourbon, and we do it in 1 year. I would try it, but I would absolutely 100% in 35 seconds call bullshit if I pour it in the glass and it didn't do right,
Yeah.
And there's too many of us out there. We know exactly what we're looking for when we pour that in the glass. We're looking at the edge. We're looking at the color. We're doing the nose. We don't even have to know. And when I say we, I mean, I'm looking at Bourbon Rendezvous down here, in the chat. There's bourbon and there's whiskey nose, and all of us. We know all of these things. We don't even have to know the mash bill. We can about tell you the mash bill after we start tasting it. We can about tell you how long it was in the barrel after we start tasting it. Now, it's approximate, but if somebody brought me a bourbon that they said, hey, we have created a 12-year smooth aged bourbon in 1 year, don't tell me that's what it is. Bring it to me blind and give me an ounce of it and say, tell me what you think about this bourbon. And I don't even want to know what it is. And I'll pour it in the glass, and my mind is immediately going to start comparing it to everything on this shelf back here as I'm going through all the motions with it. And then I will tell you what range I would put it in. And then reveal what it is. And if I say I think it's a 10 to 12-year aged bourbon and they aged it 1 year, now I'm going to do more research.
Right. Yeah.
But I have a sneaky suspicion that I would probably say, I don't think this is straight bourbon. I think this is just bourbon. And I think it's young. I mean, really, honestly, that's what's probably going to happen.
They had a time machine and they went up 20 years.
Yeah.
Got the bourbon and brought it back.
But, I don't know. It's in my experience, I read some of the hype on some of the stuff. And what I'll do is I'll take bourbons and I'll have my wife pour. And I have these little ABC vials. And I'll tell her, look, I'll take, here's 5 bourbons. I'm bringing 5 bourbons in here. And here's 3 vials, ABC. Pick any 3 of these 5 and just put them random order and then label it and put it in the envelope. And then I'll bring them out here and then I'll go through them and see what I get, Keeps you on your toes, keeps you sharp. I used to do that. I called it I used to have a Saturday night show. I called it the blinds. And I would sit here and I would have her, sometimes I would bring her several bourbons and say, pour one of these. And I would just do one bourbon blind on that show. But I knew it was one of 5. But I had her come out here one time and I said, anything on the shelf, just grab any bottle. And please take the step stool with you, because if you don't, I know it won't be from the top. So bring the step stool, open it, even if you don't use it, and I'll be in the other room. And then when you're ready, and try to put the bottle back exactly where it was, because I don't have the levels of these bottles memorized, So put the bottle back right where it was, and then have everything back in order. And then when I come out here, there's a and then she's written down what it was and put it in the envelope.
We could start doing that.
We could, but you need to progress a little more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I've got it in my mind for us to do stuff like that. But yeah, I need you to progress just a little.
I don't even need the step ladder.
No, you can reach all of it. But if you get it, you can't do the blind.
No, I meant, no. I wouldn't be doing the blind.
Oh.
I'd be.
Yeah. No, I want us to do the blind.
All right.
Because when I do my bourbon tastings at the house here, And of course, I know there's people all over the place. I can't invite everybody. I mean, if you want an invite, I'll invite you, but I'm not going to pay for your airfare. But what I do is I clear that big 54-inch table off over there, and it's like a pub table. And I put the bourbon wheel on the 100-inch screen, and then I print out like the nosing and tasting, charts. We have 3 bourbons, and I have a Lazy Susan out there. I push it back, and I have the 3 bourbons that we're tasting out there, and I have little laminated placards of like, this is about Eagle Rare. This is about, this one. This is about whatever I pick, to do for the tasting. And I have them all out there where you can read them all. But when we taste, it's ABC. And that's why I have so many glasses behind me on these shelves back here, because when we do one of those bourbon parties like that, tastings, I'll have 6, 7, 8 people around the table, and everybody gets 3 glasses, 3 clean snifters. So, I need a lot of these little glasses right here.
Since you've had one of those.
It has, because COVID.
Yeah.
But I'm ramping back up, but I'm waiting now because, I'm busy. If I do one, I'm probably going to have to cancel the Saturday Sip Along show.
No,
because it's going to be on a Saturday. And
we can do one and film it for the Saturday.
Well, when I do, I have to move all of the studio stuff over out of the way. I mean, this room's hopping when I do these things. Well, and what happens too is when I do the bourbon tasting, I do hors d'oeuvres. I do like a dry aged steak and cut it up for everybody to try. We'll have people bring a couple of platters of whatever. And then I tell people to bring your favorite, beverage for after the tasting. And typically we'll sit around and drink stouts or drink ales or whatever, after the bourbon tasting, and we'll hang out and have fun. It's a good hangout, and it's totally free, but it's invitation only.
I missed the last one, and then the one I went to only had one guy come to it. So
things were getting hectic with COVID and everything, and that's why I shut them down.
That was a good idea.
Yeah, and so I just haven't ramped them back up, and now I'm doing that documentary shoot. I can't put the effort into one of my tastings like that because that's a big deal. I mean, it's an all-day event, because it's not an all-day. I mean, we get together in the afternoon, but I get up at 8 a.m. and I start making stuff. Like I'll have these little petite BLT sandwiches made and all that junk, and I have these platters I bring out, of all that stuff. And it's a big event, and I have to get all the little laminated cards ready and all that type of stuff,
I can help with that. I'm right next door.
I know you do. You hadn't always lived right next door.
I haven't. You're right.
But
I
think I drove the point home here.
I think you have
with these, right? So that's pretty much the episode today. I did not schedule an after party, but what does anyone want to do an after party? If not, I will just end this stream and I will just crank up one with no thumbnail. I'll just put, "Hey, after party," and I can schedule that, but we usually try to go about 45 minutes or so on this show. Try to keep these where if people go back and watch them later, they can actually watch and get some good information out of them.
And this has been a real educational one. Are we still live?
We are, but I can create and start a new broadcast while we're live over here. But this is going to be a Sip Along after party there. I'm just going. You have to put something in the description for Facebook.
Okay, so we're still here. We're just kind of goofing off in the background here.
There.
Setting that sucker up
I
for
am
you guys.
I am gonna schedule this. I think it has to be within 15 minutes. So I'm gonna schedule it for 8:15, but I can start it anytime I want.
Dun, 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 dun.
But the reason I'm scheduling it is so I can grab the link. If it's not scheduled, I can't grab the link. So
And that is true.
I'm gonna go back over here. And now I'm gonna get the
That's a
link.
good picture, man.
That is you on the left. That's me.
No, I meant the one right in the middle. One of the cats talking to.
Yeah, this one. That's why I said you're on the left.
Oh, I think you said the left.
All right.
Could everybody see that just now?
Was that?
Could everybody see that just now?
No, I'm not sharing my screen. Content line. I'm gonna get up and stretch for a minute. Well, they can see you right now.
They can.
Yeah, they couldn't see the thumbnail.
Well, I'm going to get up and stretch for a minute.
Well, you can get up and stretch. Let me go back in here and see.
I hope everybody's having a great Saturday, by the way.
Yeah, and I didn't see it on YouTube yet, but I was going to grab the link. But anyway, I'm going to go start that up. And Sam, I'll send you the link to the after party if you want to jump up with us. And in a little bit, we'll invite some more people up. I'll actually pin it, once it hits YouTube and all that. And I'll get it pinned. But guys, thanks for stopping in for the educational portion of the show.
Yeah, thank you.
We're going to take it to the after party. All right.
Have a great weekend, everybody.